Hey, it's that Deadeye guy. Let us remember the revolutionary series created by Valve, Half-Life. This is a series that is near and dear to a lot of PC gamers' hearts, and despite it already being pretty much dead, I wanted to put together this video to serve as a requiem. It was 1998, a year that saw the release of gaming powerhouses like Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil 2. Console gaming was dominant, though PC gaming was slowly beginning to emerge out of being a niche hobby. A major catalyst to its ascent to the mainstream was the release of Half-Life on November 19th. You fill the shoes of Dr. Gordon Freeman, an MIT graduate and research associate at the government-funded, extremely secretive Black Mesa Research Facility, located somewhere in New Mexico. The iconic opening scene begins with Gordon riding the tram from the facility dormitories into the heart of Black Mesa to begin yet another day of research. Gordon is one of the hands-on research associates and would be required to don the Hazardous Environment Suit, or HEV, in order to perform his duties. Once acquired, Gordon heads down to the Anomalous Materials Lab, where the events that would kick off the main storyline of Half-Life would unfold. During the day's experiment, Freeman pushes a mysterious sample into the anti-mass spectrometer located within the test chamber. The ensuing reaction causes a resonance cascade that rips holes in reality and opens up portals between Earth and the alien world of Zen. It is here that all hell breaks loose, and Freeman wakes up sometime later in a Black Mesa that has been thrown into utter chaos. Starting a new game and being placed on the tram into Black Mesa with nothing but a quick title screen immediately grabs you. You observe the surroundings as the opening credits roll, getting a feel for what kind of place this is. There's countless old guys in lab coats whom you can only assume are all experts in various scientific fields, and they're usually accompanied by armed security personnel. The size of your surroundings really starts to hit home the amount of funding a place like this might have, not only to have an enormous research facility, but to also have on-premises dining and housing facilities for its employees. Black Mesa felt unique, and just what we might imagine a place the federal government would like to keep under tight wraps. As you make your way through the game, you find yourself traversing through different areas of the facility, all while fending off the military as well as hostile aliens from Zen. The levels range from moving across the surface of New Mexico down to navigating your way through the internal tram system. Eventually, Freeman discovers that there is a creature on the other side of the spatial tear that is holding the gateway between Zen and Earth open. He must travel to Zen and kill it, severing the connection between both worlds for good. With his durable HEV suit and his collection of conventional and experimental weapons in tow, he leaps through the portal into the unknown. At this point, the game is roughly 80% complete, but we as the player are just now discovering a completely new world filled with familiar aliens we encountered back in Black Mesa. We also start to hear the whispers of the creature holding open the portal as he realizes what you are there to do. You make your way across Zen and eventually through a bioengineering factory where the aliens create their soldiers. Eventually, you come across the portal that leads you to the lair of Nihilanthe, Half-Life's big baddie. After a lengthy battle, he eventually succumbs to the damage sustained from Freeman's impressive armory. As he explodes in a flash of light, Freeman is knocked out, only to wake to a strangely familiar face. Known only as the G-Man, he speaks to you in an incredibly off-putting voice. Impressed with your work and penchant for survival, he offers you a job, with the alternative being placed in a suicidal battle you have no chance of winning. Freeman accepts this job and the game ends as you step into the portal. The G-Man can be seen from the very beginning and at various places throughout Black Mesa. Neither the aliens nor the soldiers seem to pay him any mind, and it seems obvious that he had a significant hand in ensuring the resonance cascade occurred. More on that later. Half-Life was a huge leap forward for PC shooters. It certainly wasn't the first one to take on 3D space in a real way, but it was by far the most polished at the time. Movement was fluid, the guns generally felt pretty great, and the graphics were top-notch. I remember our family computer could barely play it at a reasonable frame rate at the medium settings. The icing on that proverbial cake, though, was the atmosphere. Half-Life is a complete single-player shooter experience. It's got enough of an arcade-like feel to match the Quakes and Dooms of the world, but still kept some of the tactical shooter features to avoid feeling absurd. It's already bad enough that we have a physics nerd single-handedly fighting off battalions of Marines and alien forces. It'd have been much worse if he'd been doing it while backflipping off walls sporting magic science armor that is largely impervious to all damage. Each level keeps the pace flowing perfectly. Just as an area is beginning to feel a bit too familiar, you hit the end and are introduced to the next portion of Black Mesa. All of these qualities mentioned make Half-Life a major milestone to the genre. And although it is starting to show its age when playing it almost 2 decades later, it is still every bit as enjoyable as it was in 1998. A year later, Valve contracted Gearbox Software to create an expansion for Half-Life called Opposing Force. This single-player campaign allows the player to experience the incident at Black Mesa through the eyes of a recon marine, Corporal Adrian Shepard, who was sent in to perform cleanup duty on the facility. Of course, things go south, and the bird you and your squad were flying in on goes down. You survive and are forced to navigate through the facility in an attempt to reunite with your unit. The expansion pack allows you to see a few different areas within Black Mesa, but still interestingly keeps the progression in line with the original Half-Life. As you traverse Black Mesa, Gordon Freeman is doing the same. At one point, you actually witness the notorious Forget About Freeman radio broadcast as it is being transmitted, the very same message Freeman hears through a radio on the other side of the facility. You even catch a glimpse of him as he is making his leap into Zen in search of Nyalanth. This kind of continuity was really nice, and drove home the fact that you were in the same timeline as the original game, albeit with very different circumstances. Ironically, much of the story isn't considered 100% canonical. Gearbox added in a wealth of new content with Opposing Force. It felt like a legitimate expansion pack back before the dark days of paid DLC. The UI looks slightly different to show that Corporal Shepard is wearing powered combat armor rather than the HEV from the original title. The weapons available are expanded quite a bit as well. There are some conventional additions like the M249 machine gun as well as the M40A1 sniper rifle, both extremely powerful in their own right, but there's also the addition of a few alien weapons that add a bit of variety to the gunplay. The non-canonical alien additions do not hail from Zen, but do serve as an excuse for changing up the types of enemies you can encounter. You'll run into many more of these newer aliens rather than the old Vortigaunts and Grunts from the original game. You'll also run into additional types of government Black Ops soldiers. Opposing Force was a solid addition to the Half-Life series, giving players just a little bit more of a glimpse into the events that unfolded at Black Mesa. While much of it isn't really considered true parts of the story, it's still pretty awesome to live through the incident from a different perspective. The character of Corporal Shepard is very interesting in contrast to Dr. Freeman. After Shepard fights back the non-Zen aliens from taking over the facility, the game closes with Shepard riding in an Osprey, a tactical nuke detonating in the background, removing all trace of Black Mesa. In the bird with you is the G-Man. While he doesn't directly offer you employment as he does Freeman, he still admires your penchant for survival and has you detained rather than outright killed like the liability that you are. I was really hoping we would see Corporal Shepard again in later titles, but alas, it was not meant to be. Opposing Force is still a required playthrough if you want to get the full Half-Life experience. And that brings us to Blue Shift, Gearbox's second expansion for Half-Life. All of the great things I had to say about Opposing Force pretty much go away here. This expansion feels like it was very lazily cobbled together from spare parts and extra assets from the original game. You return to live through the events at Black Mesa, this time as Barney Calhoun, a security guard at the facility. All of the additional weapons from Opposing Force are gone. You're back to just the original armory from the first game, and the only real character additions is a few scientists whom you help escape the facility before the tactical nuke is detonated. Much like Corporal Shepard, Barney sees Dr. Freeman at a key part of the original story. The novelty is not enough to save this expansion though. It is largely a mess and doesn't have anything approaching the great flow and design of the first two titles. While it is mildly interesting to see how Barney escapes Black Mesa, the overall game is simply not worth the time unless you absolutely have to see everything in the Half-Life storyline. I'm a massive fan of this series, and Blue Shift is still a chore to get through. In addition to the official expansion packs, Half-Life modding tools were excellent for creating new and interesting game types. Many were made, but a few climbed to the top of the heap and became staples in the genre. The first major mod to be released was Team Fortress Classic. I played the absolute shit out of this game when I was a kid. The class-based objective-focused arena shooter was an absolute blast, and while it wasn't the first of its kind, utilizing Half-Life as a foundation made it feel like a very tight and well-made experience. Each match was extremely enjoyable and always had you begging to play just one more round. This was a major catalyst for the wildly popular Team Fortress 2 that is still played by thousands today. TFC didn't age well, and though I'll cherish my fond memories of trying to pick off enemy VIPs as a sniper or poisoning half the enemy team as a medic, I really can't recommend going back and playing it nowadays. Just go for Team Fortress 2 instead. You really can't call yourself a PC gamer and not be at least aware of Counter-Strike. It became, and still remains to this day, the quintessential competitive shooter. While it was certainly clunky in its beginnings, it slowly evolved to a high-quality, precise tactical shooter whose modern rendition is completely unmatched in the esports circuit. This is another title I played a lot of as a kid, and I attribute a lot of my FPS skills to countless hours in middle and high school playing it. It requires a very different set of skills than the old school arena shooters like Quake and Unreal Tournament. There's no flipping around and spamming rockets here. It's all about quick flicks, awareness of surroundings, teamwork, and accuracy. These qualities were somewhat rare in a shooter at the time, and CS struck a chord a few other games could. It only continues to blow up from its original launch in 2000. The last popular mod was Day of Defeat. Admittedly, I never really got into this one. In my opinion, there were more well-crafted and interesting World War II shooters on the market like Battlefield 1942. Still, there's no doubting that Day of Defeat was quite popular for its time, and even now there's still enough players to be able to regularly find matches. It matched a little bit of the tactical feel of Counter-Strike with the Nazis versus Allies coat of paint. It doesn't require quite the amount of precision as CS, but still makes for an enjoyable team-based shooter that easily pulls you in and has you ever clamoring for the next round. It was 6 years after we took our first steps into the Black Mesa research facility that Valve released Half-Life 2, once again placing us into the boots of the now infamous Dr. Freeman. The game begins as the original, on a tram, but not without an ominous message from the G-Man telling you that your time has come again. As you step off the train, it's clear that you have re-entered a very grim world. 20 years have passed since the resonance cascade at Black Mesa. Earth has been taken over by an interdimensional entity known as the Combine, who were able to travel to Earth because of the portals opened up in the original game. Humanity lives in a state of near enslavement as the Combine sucks away any and all of Earth's natural resources. Shortly after entering SETI 17, you get swooped up by your old security guard colleague from Black Mesa, Barney Calhoun. He gets you pointed in the right direction for escaping the city and joining the resistance against the Combine, and it's here that the storyline really begins. Gord reunites with several other former Black Mesa associates, as well as the daughter of one such colleague, Alex, who will serve as a close ally in the trials to come. You discover that they have found a way to recreate the teleportation technology from the original game. This new asset would be key in evacuating people from the enslavement cities, as well as serving as a potential weapon against the Combine. The successful testing is cut short by a Combine attack though, and you are separated from your friends, but not before acquiring an upgraded version of your old HEV suit. You escape the Combine, fleeing across the Eastern European landscape on foot and airboat. You eventually discover that Eli Vance, Alex's father, is being held at a maximum security prison called Nova Prospect. As you work your way towards rescuing Dr. Vance, you encounter various obstacles, including Combine attacks, physical navigation puzzles, and alien life forms called antlions, who eventually help you in battle once you acquire their pheromones. Upon breaching the prison, you discover that Dr. Vance has been moved to the Citadel, the Combine headquarters on Earth, located in City 17. This facility is operated by Dr. Breen, your old administrator from Black Mesa. He serves as the intermediary puppet between humanity and the Combine, erring on the side of keeping the people of Earth contained, quiet, and complacent, with him as their overlord. The Resistance launches a full-out attack on City 17 as you make your way to the core and infiltrate the Citadel, fighting street to street against platoons of Combine forces. After freeing Eli, you and Alex pursue Dr. Breen to the top of the Citadel, where a dark fusion reactor maintains the link between the Combine's universe and Earth. Freeman manages to destroy the device using its own power source as weapons. Just as the device explodes, time suddenly freezes, and the G-Man appears to tell you that you've done well. Presumably, the link the Combine was using has been closed, but details regarding the actual event are cut off by once again being snatched from reality. Nothing is shown about Alex's or Dr. Breen's fate. The game ends as it begins, with G-Man's cryptic commentary. Half-Life 2 builds upon the same polish and feel of the original game and brings it into the modern age. What little that might have been lacking on the tightness of controls, especially when handling weapons, was completely erased. All the guns have a specific feel that you can easily master after just a few minutes. The addition of the gravity gun that can manipulate doodads throughout the world allows the player to use their ingenuity to navigate through each level and solve each puzzle as they see fit. It can serve as both a utility and a deadly weapon, launching heavy objects and enemies at a very high velocity. Great if you ever run out of ammunition for your other weapons. The biggest contribution by this title was the continuation of Dr. Freeman's story and the events following the resonance cascade at Black Mesa. Despite being completely silent, the player is engrossed by Freeman's storyline because we can easily place ourselves in his boots throughout the game. There's very few cutscenes that take away control from you, so even when a narrative scene is happening and characters are speaking directly to you, You're free to run and jump around per usual. The game does end rather abruptly and provides little closure what happens to Earth after the destruction of the Dark Fusion reactor, but it still felt like a completely satisfying experience. Half-Life 2 stands on my top shelf as one of the best video games ever made. The release of Half-Life 2 also gave us the Source engine, which was absolutely fantastic in the modding and game development community. The versatility of it has been used to create games from new types of shooters to physics sandboxes like Gary's mod. It doesn't look too bad, even now. Sure, it's not going to win any awards for graphics in 2018, but go back and play a couple rounds at Team Fortress 2, which runs on Source. It's still completely serviceable on that front. In addition to TF2, Valve also released Left 4 Dead, a team co-op zombie survival shooter, and Portal, the iconic single-player puzzle game that happens to be set in the same universe as Half-Life. These two games, as well as allowing Counter-Strike to be seamlessly brought into the modern engine, really showed off the versatility of Source. There are still Source games and mods being made to this day, not to mention the things people are doing with Source Filmmaker. In 2004, Valve released Half-Life 2 Episode 1. This shorter DLC add-on continued the main story almost immediately after the events at the top of the Citadel. Gordon and Alex have somehow made it back down to the base of the tower, likely with the help of the G-Man. The reactor is on the verge of explosion though, forcing Alex and Freeman to re-enter the Citadel to slow down its meltdown process and allow for escape. After doing so, they make it back out to the city, navigating through zombie-infested undergrounds, and then reuniting with Barney in order to help people board outbound escape trains. Gordon and Alex make it out on the last train, and as the episode closes, the Citadel can be seen detonating in the distance. The Combine used this event to transmit a message to the Combine homeworld, possibly allowing for the immediate return. The episode closes with Freeman blacking out from the shockwave of the explosion. Episode 1 was a nice addition to a story that players didn't think would be continuing for a very long time. Additional features were added to the engine, and it really shows as you interact with Alex. For the time, it looked fantastic, and you don't get much Uncanny Valley feel from how she speaks to you. There isn't many enemy additions outside of the Combine zombies who will suicide charge you with a live grenade, but the situations you're put in are pretty unsettling. The mine shaft that is mostly pitch black with an army of zombies creeping at you in the darkness is near horror game levels of terrifying. Episode 2 was released 3 years later in 2007 and picks up just after Freeman and Alex escape City 17. The message the Combine sent to their homeworld contained data that would allow a portal to be opened back to Earth, but this time would be controlled from the other side. That data would have to get back to the Resistance so that a way to stop that from happening could be found. As they navigate their way through White Forest, they run into the appropriately named Hunters, three-legged killing machines designed specifically to track down and kill human targets. Alex is mortally wounded by one, but she is stabilized by alien allies from Zen. They inform Gordon that he must acquire antlion larval extract to save her life. Of course, he delves into a nest of antlions to retrieve it, and she is then saved with their powers. G-Man appears, being previously prevented from contacting Gordon by the aliens, and informs him that Alex is important to his plans, which is why she was saved from Black Mesa as a child. Their journey continues, and they eventually reach the White Forest outpost where a plan is devised to launch a rocket that would be used alongside satellites to close the Combine super portal before it has a chance to fully open. More time is required though, and Gordon has to defend the rocket from massive Combine assault forces that include foot soldiers, hunters, and the towering Striders. Once the rocket is launched, the Resistance members go outside to watch as the super portal closes, keeping the Combine from sending additional forces from their home world. Eli reveals to Gordon that he knows of the G-Man and has had dealings with their mutual friend. Before a chance to expand upon that can be had though, a duo of advisors, powerful psychic Combine creatures, breaks into the compound. They are fought off by Alex's robot protector, but not before Eli is killed and all of his knowledge of the Resistance absorbed by the advisors. The episode ends grimly with Alex weeping over the body of her dead father. The addition of Hunters in Episode 2 added much needed combat variability into the game. Combine soldiers were predictable and had become far too routine to kill. The Hunters were much tougher and hit far harder. You actually had to adjust your tactics when dealing with them. Going at them head on was a great way to die quickly. There were no additional weapons in this episode, but you did get to use the Magnuson device to kill Striders. These devices were basically just modern sticky bombs. You launched them at the body of Striders with your gravity gun, and then detonated them with a single shot, instantly taking down the Strider. The White Forest environment was also a nice change from the grim and gray cityscape and Citadel levels, and it was nice to see that not all of Earth was dead and buried just yet. Story-wise, Episode 2 was a fantastic intermediary chapter in the Half-Life saga. While there was massive success in closing the super portal to the Combine homeworld, the leader of the Resistance, Eli Vance, was not only dead, but had had his knowledge absorbed by the Combine, giving them a massive advantage in the battles to come. The game fading to black as Alex sobs in the background was an incredibly powerful moment. It left players absolutely rabid for Episode 3. Years went by. Rumors of Episode 3 were rare and hardly believable. There wasn't any way Valve would leave the player base hanging high and dry on a cliffhanger, right? Well, not exactly. As of May 2018, we still have absolutely nothing from Valve as to where Episode 3 is and what is happening to the Half-Life series. Some leaks suggest that Half-Life 3 is still somewhat in the works, but others point to the series being utterly abandoned, as Steam is already incredibly profitable for the company, and no Half-Life game they could release would ever come close to living up to the hype of fans. Most lovers of the franchise, myself included, have given up on ever seeing a new Half-Life title. Now, over a decade since the last episode was released, we have to remember Half-Life for what it was: a paragon in first-person shooters. A paste bin from a former writer at Valve surfaced in August of 2017. It read as a letter written by Dr. Freeman himself, detailing the events that were presumably set to occur in Episode 3. Gordon and Alex would travel to the coordinates of a naval vessel called the Borealis. This ship carried technology being developed by the rival research facility to Black Mesa called Aperture Science, the very same facility that Portal takes place in. The Borealis contained technology of immense power that would surely help the Resistance against Combine forces, the ability to bend space and time. The Combine was not going to remain passive in that discovery and quickly pursued them across the ship as it navigated the Arctic Ocean. They created a portal to their homeworld utilizing the ship's technology, setting the Borealis on a one-way trip to the other side. The decision was made that Alex and Gordon would set the ship to explode once it reached the Combine homeworld, with both dying in the process. Of course, the G-Man shows up and whisks Alex away as he had done in Black Mesa all those years ago, and Gordon is retrieved by his reality-altering alien friends. The story ends, and that is all we know of Half-Life's storyline. 2018 marks 2 decades since Half-Life was released on PC. It had a profound effect not only on the gaming community, but me personally as I was in the infancy of my gaming life. It wasn't just a play and forget kind of title, but one I would routinely return to because even now, the quality is hard to match. The hundreds of mods created off the backs of both the original engine and source are a testament to how the games were made, allowing for unlimited customizability and creation by the community. The second title is a true masterpiece that, with the way that single-player shooters are made today, I don't think we'll ever see matched again. Those of us who consider ourselves to be fans of this series, and there are a lot of us, will always have the sinking question of what if in the back of our minds. What if Episode 3 actually came out? What if Valve was secretly working on Half-Life 3 all this time? What if Gabe Newell actually cared about Half-Life fans rather than swimming in his money pool? We'll never know, but at least we'll always have these titles to return to and fondly remember the first time we stepped into the gray halls of the Black Mesa research facility. Thanks for watching. Did Half-Life have the same effect on you as it did on me? Let me know down below or over on Twitter. If you like content like this, why not subscribe and keep up to date with new videos? I'd also really appreciate if you hit that thumbs up button. It really helps me out. Until next time.